Hey, I wrote a cool rap for this video. You guys excited to hear it?
Yay!
Never mind.
The world is weird and makes me mad, but at least I get to talk about it with Jose.
The Fresh Prince of Bel Air debuted on September 10th, 1990, lasting 6 seasons before finishing on May 20th, 1996. Although never a ratings blockbuster, the show had tremendous staying power in syndication and helped launch the career of its star, Will Smith. The Fresh Prince of Bel Air also introduced the wider American audiences to hip-hop culture and new ways of looking at race in the 90s. Some of the lessons seem especially relevant to the present day and are part of why the show is still so fondly remembered. The story of The Fresh Prince of Bel Air doesn't begin with Will Smith, but instead Benny Medina. A young executive in the music industry, his life was a loose basis for the story of Will Smith in the Fresh Prince series. Whereas Smith grew up in Philadelphia, Medina grew up in East Los Angeles. Living in poverty with his 4 siblings, they lost their mother to cancer and their father was often absent, and they lived in a series of foster homes. Eventually taken in by his aunt and her husband, it was there he made an unlikely friendship with Alan Elliott, the son of television composer Jack Elliott. Medina was able to convince the wealthy family to let him live in an apartment above their garage, and from there he found himself living in an upscale neighborhood, going to high school in Beverly Hills. While going to school in Beverly Hills, he made a friend of Kerry Gordy, son of legendary producer Berry Gordy. After graduating high school, Benny found himself working for Berry Gordy, where he quickly distinguished himself, working alongside many big names in the music industry. Working with Jeffrey Pollock, the two decided to pitch a TV show loosely based on his life, eventually teaming up with music industry icon Quincy Jones. Part of what motivated Jones to get involved was revealed in an interview before the series premiered. Blacks have been repressed on TV for so long. When I was young, there was nothing on the radio for blacks. It was like black people didn't exist. A white person isolated in Iowa sees blacks on the TV set and thinks that's what black people are like, and they're always wrong. I want to change that. A black kid moving in with a rich white family had been done before in TV shows such as Different Strokes and Webster. This show would instead combine some elements from Medina's life. The young lead's adoptive rich parent figures would instead be his uncle and aunt. As part of an interview with Ebony magazine, Medina elaborated. That way we could explore black-on-black prejudice as well as black class differences. Elements of Medina's life were left out to keep the show from getting too heavy. Medina went on to explain. We adjusted the premise of the sitcom to fit Will. My upbringing didn't have much comedy in it. Most of the kids I grew up with, if they're still alive, they're in Watts right now. 4 of the 6 cats I grew up with are dead. I'm 30. At around this time, Will Smith had made a big splash in the music industry as part of the duo DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, with their hit single, Parents Just Don't Understand. This was part of a huge movement in pop music where hip-hop was on the ascent, and you had a genre dominated by black artists burning up the charts. Smith had never really considered acting, but upon meeting Medina at a taping of the Arsenio Hall show, he became a favorite for the lead of this new sitcom, and was soon introduced to Quincy Jones. The story of Will being cast is best told by the man himself.
Tell me your rap name again? They call me the Fresh Prince. All right, good. That's what we're gonna call the show. I need you to do this. I need you to go ahead, take a few minutes, take 10 minutes, study the script, and I'm gonna clear all the stuff out the living room, and we're gonna have everybody sit down in the living room. We're gonna do an audition. And I was like, hey, Q, hold up, man, hold up. I'm not ready to do no audition. And he said, oh, all right, yeah. So 3 weeks from now, Q, we can do it 3 weeks from now. I said, yeah, 3 weeks from now be good. Or you could take 10 minutes right now and you can change your life forever. And I was like, it then. Yes, give me 10 minutes.
With the title of the show decided and its star cast, The Fresh Prince of Bel Air was finally taking form. The show's pitch was received by NBC, who had been looking for something exactly like it. TV producer Warren Littlefield, who had been working at NBC at the time, explains. We were looking at Newsweek and Time and seeing these cover stories about rap music. I was personally watching Yo! MTV Raps and just feeling waves of something new and contemporary running through various streams of culture in America. We felt there was a drumbeat going on out there, and we looked at our development schedule and said, it's not represented. With Quincy Jones involved, and a rapper being the star, hip-hop became an essential part of the show. Reading some of the comments from Jones and Smith, the show was certainly about introducing America to hip-hop. Will Smith in particular said, rap music, which a lot of white America doesn't understand, rap music is not just a music. Rap music is a subculture, hip-hop. It's a style of dress, an attitude, a look, a language. It's more than just music. And Smith goes on to explain how valuable Quincy Jones was in establishing that as part of the show. Quincy understands rap music. You know, he was pretty much there for the past 30 years of music. His input is valuable because he understands where someone else, his age wouldn't. Whereas I can't communicate what I'm trying to say to an executive or someone I can't explain what hip is to. They think hip is rap music. Quincy can. He's a good mediator. But there is a slight disconnect between the idea Smith, Jones, and Medina had for the show and NBC itself. Littlefield elaborated a bit more on the position from NBC. We took a contemporary musical artist and crafted a character who was a perfect fit. In no way is this an effort to put a rap show on the air. This is an effort to put Will Smith on the air. That's who we're banking on. To a large extent, The Fresh Prince would go on to be remembered quite clearly as the launching pad for Will Smith's career, though it's an open question on how effective it was in introducing the world of hip-hop to white America. The Fresh Prince of Bel Air was a very different show when it went off the air than when it started. In addition to Medina, Jones, and Pollock, the husband and wife team of Andy and Susan Borowitz joined the show as executive producers. The two had written and worked on a number of sitcoms throughout the 80s, but The Fresh Prince of Bel Air would be their most successful creation. One important part of building the show to them was including representation on the show's staff. We made sure we had a lot of black writers and black crew people and were very open about, hey, if we get something wrong, let us know. How many white writers grew up around so many black families that they're able to see the nuances? For instance, one of our white writers wrote a Thanksgiving episode with pumpkin pie, and the black writers laughed and said, "A black Thanksgiving has sweet potato pie." The Borowitzes would write the show's pilot, though Will Smith was given some freedom to adapt the dialogue into something he was more comfortable with. Will even got the chance to name his character, and on the advice of one of his castmates, Alfonso Ribeiro, he decided to name the main character after himself. Although one subtle change was that, in real life, Will's first name was short for Willard, and on the show it would be short for William. The character moving from Philadelphia to Bel Air was also changed to match Smith's real-life background. The Bankses were inspired, in part, by Quincy Jones's family. According to Quincy, he received this phone message from one of his daughters who was away at camp. "Dad, the water here sucks. Please FedEx Evian." So the idea for the show was to drop Will into a family like Quincy's. We don't know if Hillary was accurate, but Quincy called his daughters Black American princesses and said, "You've got to have the daughters be Baps." With Will Smith being relatively new to the world of acting, a lot of effort went into building a proper supporting cast. James Avery was cast as Philip Banks. Although Will Smith was the star of the show, the character of Philip Banks is very much the soul of the series. Avery hadn't heard of The Fresh Prince, and as one story goes, when he went to audition for the role, not realizing who Will Smith was, he told him to take his feet off the table and to straighten out his sideways hat. That little show of authority is supposedly what gave him the role. Avery fit the role of Uncle Phil perfectly, switching between comedic and serious notes at the drop of a hat, and presenting himself as the father figure for his nephew.
What do you boys think I should do? I don't know. Reward us for our honesty? hey, it worked for the beef. Do I look like a white guy named Ward?
Similar to James Avery, Janet Hubert had also never heard of The Fresh Prince when she was cast as Will's Aunt Vivian. Although relatively new to acting on screen, Hubert had been on stage as part of the original cast of Cats. Vivian was very much the counterbalance to Philip, who, instead of locking heads with her irreverent nephew, felt a connection to him. Hubert would eventually be replaced as Aunt Vivian in season 4 of the series, but we'll cover that later on in the video.
Did you ask your wife to calm down?
Calm yourself, Barney Fife.
Vivian, please. Now, officers, I'm sure we can clear this whole matter up quite easily.
Could you please sit down? We're busy now.
Oh, honey, we're about to get very busy.
Karen Parsons was cast as the eldest of the Banks children, Hillary. Her first major acting role, Parsons went from working as a restaurant hostess to working on television. Although in college when the series begins, Hillary's scholarly pursuits often take a backseat to her love of shopping and living in luxury.
Federal taxes? This is an outrage! Didn't President Bush say no new taxes?
But federal taxes aren't new.
Well, they are to me. Who is this FICA guy?
Carlton Banks was played by Alfonso Ribeiro. Although not even 20 years old yet, Ribeiro already had an impressive resume, having been a cast member on Silver Spoons and appearing in a Pepsi commercial alongside Michael Jackson. Although losing the part after his performance failed to impress an NBC executive, Ribeiro managed to hold on to his role as the impossibly square Carlton. He would often be Will's foil throughout the series. a country club counterpoint to Will's hip-hop homeboy.
Mom, Dad, I have a little favor. My English teacher, Mr. Fellows, doesn't have anywhere to go for Thanksgiving tomorrow, and I just thought, since he's all alone and we have so much to share, could we invite him to dinner?
Certainly, Carlton. That's very thoughtful.
And not the worst way to pull my grade up to an A.
Ashley Banks was played by Tatiana Ali, and even at 11, she had a few notable credits under her belt, such as a reoccurring role on Sesame Street. Ashley would be the only Banks child to instantly connect with her cousin, as Will expanded her world to be so much more than the confines of Bel Air, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse.
Sweetie, would you say grace, please?
Yes, Mommy. Hey there, Lord. My name is Ashley Banks. My family and friends want to give you some thanks. So before this dinner's all swallowed and chewed, thank you, God, for this stupid food.
The final member of the cast was Joseph Marcel, playing the Banks' butler, Geoffrey. Marcel had the finest pedigree of the cast, being a member of the Royal Shakespeare Company and performing in a number of different stage productions. His role as Geoffrey was more muted than the rest of the cast, though he became known for delivering devastating one-liners through a thinly veiled contempt he had for the Banks family.
What is that?
Vivian, I think it's the big one.
Not unless he's down with OPP. Yeah, you know me!
A few recurring regulars would appear throughout the series, such as DJ Jazzy Jeff playing Will's friend Jazz, and Vernie Watson-Johnson playing Will's mother Viola. The last piece of the puzzle was the show's theme, Yo Home to Bel Air, written by Quincy Jones and performed by Will Smith. If you're at all familiar with the series, I'm sure the song and its lyrics are burned into your mind. The YouTube gods are cruel, so I won't be playing it here, but here's Will Smith performing the song at Live 8 in 2005, almost 10 years after the show went off the air.
Now I need y'all to help me out with this one. I need y'all to help me out. Now this is a story.
The Fresh Prince of Bel Air debuted on September 10th, 1990 with the episode The Fresh Prince Project. Written by series producers Andy and Susan Borowitz, it connects directly to the opening theme as we see Will entering the Banks household wearing the same outfit he did during the opening credits. The first sounds we hear from the series are Will using the door knocker to play Soul to Soul's Back to Life. This would be a strong trend throughout the first season, as Will would constantly be playing contemporary music by R&B, hip-hop, and other genres dominated by black artists. And we see the difference in his relationship with his Aunt Vivian and Uncle Phil.
Willie!
Hey, Aunt Viv! How you doing?
Hi!
It is amazing. You certainly have grown, Will.
Well, we all have.
Just as quickly, we get a sense of Will's relationship with his cousins.
Dad, I need $300.
Hillary, your cousin Will is here.
Hi. Dad, I need $300.
Don't need no choir when you're a rapper.
Gonna hunt Miss Berkeley down and Zephyr.
Got this whole town of Bel Air buzzing.
Get a load of me and my rapping cousin.
Yeah, you got
How's it going there, Will?
Yeah, it's going all right, man.
Ah, Malcolm X.
Yeah, he's sort of my hero.
Well, he was a great man. I don't know if I'd call him my hero exactly.
Oh, really? Who are your heroes?
Well, my dad. And Bryant Gumbel, he's darn good.
The difference between Malcolm X and Bryant Gumbel should, I hope, show everyone how these two come from very different worlds. The rest of the episode features Will playing the fish out of water at a fancy dinner party, a scenario so classic you would see it in a Three Stooges short. It does do the job of establishing the premise of the series, though.
Will, there are other people at this table.
Oh, you're right. Any requests?
We also see, for the first of many times, Uncle Phil chewing out Will.
From the minute you walked in that door, you've been a one-man wrecking crew, trying to tear down what's taken a lot of hard work to build up, skewering everything with your flippant shenanigans.
Will tries to call out his Uncle Phil on forgetting where he came from.
Man, I don't have a problem, all right? You had a problem. All right, I remind you of where you came from and what you used to be. Now, I don't know, somewhere between Princeton or the office, you got soft. You forgot who you are and where you came from.
I grew up on the streets just like you. I encountered bigotry you could not imagine. Now, you have a nice poster of Malcolm X on your wall. I heard the brother speak. I read every word he wrote. Believe me, I know where I come from.
Note how Uncle Phil's voice changes slightly when he calls Malcolm X a brother. I believe this is a deliberate move by James Avery, and something he would later mention in an interview, how being a black actor gave him access to two different ways of speaking.
Now, as an African American, we're bicultural and we're bilingual. We can slip into either way. I mean, I can speak and attack all my consonants and vowels and be perfectly understood, but at the same time, I could slip back and kick your mother. No.
When he speaks with that different inflection, he's signaling to Will and the audience not just that he listened to Malcolm X, but that he connected with his Black liberation movement in a deep and meaningful way. It's a small touch that we'd see throughout the series and a real mark of his talent. The scene also gives us a hint that there might be more to Will than what's assumed of him by people like Uncle Phil, as we see him playing Beethoven's Für Elise as the scene closes. Music is again used to highlight different sides of characters, as in the final scene we hear Carlton singing Silly Love Songs by Paul McCartney and Wings.
I look around me and I see a little song. Oh no.
One of the key objectives of this series was to introduce America to a black family that was unlike anything they had seen before, and most importantly, that there was the same diversity within black communities that you would see within white ones. The series producers spoke to this. We hadn't seen black actors portraying English butlers, millionaire corporate lawyers, and Princeton-bound preppies in 1990, and one thing Quincy stressed, which was so important, was that the characters had to have duality. Uncle Phil was excited to live in the same neighborhood as the Reagans, but he was also proud to have heard Malcolm X speak. 25 years ago, there was a sense of this monolith of a black experience, that there was one kind of black American, and they all think alike and do the same thing. We like the idea of challenging that. The premiere brought with it an introduction to the nascent hip-hop culture, a discussion about race and class, and introduced us to a star in the making with Will Smith, and the rest of the season would build on this debut. In Bang the Drum Ashley will get some backup as Will Smith's real-life DJ, Jazzy Jeff, makes his debut in the series.
Yo, what's up, Jay?
And one of the show's long-running gags is established. This episode is also an example of the influence Will represents, convincing Ashley to give up her violin lessons to play the drums, although it doesn't stick. The influence works both ways though, as living in Bel Air starts to have an impact on Will too, such as in the episode Clubba Hubba, where Will takes lessons from Carlton to impress the father of a girl he's trying to date.
But I'd just like to say kudos on that polo match. Super form.
Ah, you saw it, huh? Excuse me, I didn't get your name.
Smithers, sir. Kip Smithers.
The neighborhood of Bel Air and force of nature that is Will Smith try to shape one another throughout the series, though as the seasons go on, one will seem more changed than the other. Bel Air is almost a character in itself. More than just a setting, it shapes the characters who live within it. In the episode, Not With My Pig You Don't, we meet Uncle Phil's parents, Hattie and Joe, who show up for a major award Uncle Phil is getting for his activism.
Oh, he just loved his skinny dipping, him and Melvin.
Melvin?
Oh, I don't think we all want to hear anything.
Au contraire, Dad. The Melvin stories are priceless.
So Melvin was like his best friend?
Melvin was his pig.
Much like other characters, we learn about Uncle Phil's mother through music.
When the water children wade in the water, God's gonna trouble. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, Will.
Hattie represents the past, the living history of black people in America, a history that Uncle Phil doesn't always remember, living in the world of Bel Air.
What did I do?
What did you do? You destroyed my image.
Man, I ain't destroyed nothing.
Of course you did. Look at that story. I've got to walk into that banquet room tonight filled with people who are going to think I'm nothing but a hog-handling hick from Yamacraw.
But that is where you come from, Zeke.
Mama, I was just having a few words with Will.
And I'm having a few words with you. What have you got to be ashamed of? We always put food on the table and clothes on your back.
Mama, I'm not ashamed. There are just certain aspects of my life I don't wish emphasized.
Where I come from, they call that being ashamed. Mr. Big Shot.
But eventually, he acknowledges his past.
I grew up on the streets of Baltimore. But I was born on a farm in Yamacraw, North Carolina. I was one of the lucky ones. I had two wonderful parents who worked hard every day of their lives. They couldn't give me a lot of material things, but they gave me morals, courage, and most important of all, love. I just hope I can give the next generation what my parents gave me.
Oh, I hope he mentions his pig.
Uncle Phil mentioning that he was one of the lucky ones is a reversal from the narrative he spent much of the episode trying to cultivate for a journalist interviewing his family, the sort of story tailored for his friends in the world of Bel Air, presenting himself as a self-made man who made his way through the world all on his own. By acknowledging the past, it stresses how lives are shaped by history, a history where Philip Banks helped blaze a trail for black folks behind him.
He was the first black president of the Young Farmers.
Was that like a big thing?
Oh, my, yes. I beat you again.
It also acknowledges the unique challenges and place in history he found himself in, and managing to achieve in spite of that, not simply through the strength of his own character, but the strength of the family that supported him. Bel Air, in many ways, demands its residents buy into fantasies like the self-made man. Fantasies that create people like Carlton, who conform to the system and believe in the justness of the rules around them, the same world that allows him to live so comfortably. Carlton is so outside of the black experience, as Will defines it, that there are countless jokes like these in the first season.
So you're also a disadvantaged inner-city youth, I hear.
Yeah, man, what's with him?
It's a tan.
What do you say to an Ori?
I say, what's up, Carlton?
Carlton's perception of himself rarely accounts for his race, but him being black in a world that can be hostile to that fact is made very real when he and Will leave Bel Air. In the episode Mistaken Identity, Will and Carlton volunteered to drive a Mercedes-Benz belonging to an associate of Uncle Phil to Palm Springs. When they're pulled over by the cops, Will adapts to the situation immediately.
Listen to me, Carlton. When he comes up, keep your hands on the wheel.
Good evening, Officer Carlton Banks.
Keep your hands on the wheel. Vehicle registration, please.
Just a sec. But the thing is, officer, this isn't my car.
Get out of the car, Carlton.
What?
He's going to tell us to get out of the car.
You watch too much TV, Will.
Get out of the car.
Officer, honestly, I don't see the need to...
Hey, get out of the car now.
And Will and Carlton end up in jail. Unable to make a phone call, Will and Carlton use the media to reach out to their family.
Yeah, we done it! Word to Big Bird. We fixed 8 Benzitos, 15 Jags, and a Maserati. But I ain't like the upholstery, so I took it back. Jack!
Do you have anything to say?
Dad!
And Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv show up to confront the police.
Sit down.
Hey, you don't talk to my wife like that.
Now, wait a minute, buddy. Who the hell do you think you're talking to?
Who the hell do you think you're talking to?
Interestingly, though, Uncle Phil doesn't save the day alone here. It's the white partner from his law firm, the owner of the car, who calms everything down.
Those aren't the perpetrators. Those are my partner's son and nephew.
Partner. Legal partner.
Will and Carlton, needing the media and the intervention of a white friend, speak to how many strings need to be pulled for two black teenagers who are pulled over because they're driving below the speed limit in a Mercedes. Outside of Bel Air, Carlton is forced to acknowledge the harsh reality of what it means to be black in the wider world.
Man, you ain't learned nothing this weekend, did you?
I most certainly did. Always bring a map.
What?
If we would have had a map, we wouldn't have had to drive 2 miles an hour trying to find a freeway entrance, and we wouldn't have been stopped.
I never heard of that law before, but I did hear this other law. It's called the if you see a black guy driving anything but a burnt-out Pinto, you better stop him because he stole it law. Yeah, I heard about that one.
We were detained for a few hours, Dad cleared things up, and we were released. The system works.
I hope you like that system, because you're going to be seeing a whole lot of it during your lifetime.
Not if I bring a map.
You just don't get it, do you? No map is going to save you. And neither is your glee club, or your fancy Bel Air address, or who your daddy is. Because when you're driving in a nice car in a strange neighborhood, none of that matters. They only see one thing.
Well, maybe growing up where you did has made you a little touchy. But I think you've blown this whole thing way out of proportion. If you look at the facts. Dad, if you were a policeman and you saw a car driving 2 miles an hour, wouldn't you stop it?
I asked myself that question the first time I was stopped. Good night, son.
I would stop it.
Carlton brushes right up against the truth with the line, "growing up where you did." But it isn't Will's childhood that was exceptional, it was Carlton's. He was the one who got to live a life of luxury that let him avoid the reality of racism that existed right outside his doorstep, a reality that he's going to have to confront regardless of how much he cloisters himself inside of Bel Air. It's also interesting to see, for one of the few times in these early episodes, Will feeling completely at ease. It's a bit depressing to think that the familiar pattern he connects himself to is being stopped by a police officer. This is a great little summary of what racism in policing can look like. It's the implicit bias of police officers that forces black men into prison on the assumption that they are likely criminals and liars. If not for their connections, what would have happened to Will and Carlton? Who would have been there to bail them out? Maybe they would have gotten out, but the fact that they were in the predicament at all is bad enough. The system isn't designed to work for them. Carlton also serves a purpose for non-black audiences who may be unfamiliar with this kind of discrimination. He offers insight into the black experience, ostensibly as an outsider, giving the audience an easier perspective to latch onto. Later in the season, we see another example of Carlton outside his Bel Air bubble in 72 Hours, where Will challenges him to spend a weekend in Jazz's apartment in Compton.
All right, look, homie. You're never gonna sell bags that way. Now, maybe if you went out and bought yourself a well-tailored suit and lost the earring, then you'd look like a real salesman. And that grammar, sheesh. What?
Eventually he adjusts, winning over the guys with his knowledge of finance.
Carlton, you look like a pirate.
Yo, stop fronting. You know this gear's chill.
Why are you talking like that?
Yo, how you playing me, Prince?
What?
Yo, you dissing me.
Come on, man, stop it!
Leave C-Note alone, man. He ain't leaving till he does my taxes.
Yo, I'm gonna sleep on the floor.
When Will tells his Aunt Vivian about Carlton's new habits, she pulls him out of the situation, but it brands Will as a sellout, and soon his blackness is called into question. This is an interesting episode that is largely about what it means to be black and the importance of how people should be allowed to define that in their own terms. And noticeably, being black only seems to be real outside the confines of Bel Air. The show is presenting a post-racial world in Bel Air while still acknowledging the reality of the wider world. I also appreciate how this shows divisions amongst black people along class lines in a way that few other sitcoms before it did. For a long time, TV shows tackling race relations would typically frame it as being between white and black folks. But this series is showing us conversations that happen within black communities, the sort of conversations we've seen within white communities for decades on TV, going back to shows such as The Beverly Hillbillies, where a newly rich family from the southern United States finds their homespun ways at odds with the West Coast elite. This old show might be first and foremost seen as a show about class, but one obvious aspect here is that all the characters are white, and with it, it only displays the differences between class through the lens of what it means to be white in the United States, America. One thing we rarely get to see in later seasons of this series is Vivian Banks cutting loose. Here's one example.
Carlton, you are not going to MacArthur Park tonight. In fact, none of you are going to MacArthur Park tonight.
Wait a minute.
Boy, do not test me.
Yes, ma'am.
The character of Vivian is a fascinating one who sadly becomes increasingly muted as the series goes on. A university professor, Vivian plays a prominent role in the first series episode, The Ethnic Tip, where Will and Carlton convince their high school to start a Black History course, thinking it'll be an easy A for them. Here's one student, Kellogg Lieberbaum, who's basically me.
Smith! Ho! I think the word you're looking for is yo.
Yo?
Yeah, it'll be easy to remember. It's like oi backwards.
All right.
When Vivian begins teaching the course on Black history, the student body welcomes this new course.
Hush! Somebody's calling my name, my Jesus, hush! Hush! Oh, Lordy! Somebody's calling my name.
Somehow I suspect a bunch of rich white kids might not be so welcoming, but this is the magic post-racial world of Bel Air. Will and Carlton, who are given extra work, are less enthused by the course.
I mean, weren't you the one who said that if you were really interested in something, you'd study hard?
Aunt Viv, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X 3 times.
And that makes you a serious student on Black history.
That's a very important book.
Well, baby, you can read that book. You can wear the T-shirts, you can put up the posters, and you can shout the slogans. But unless you know all the history behind it, you're trivializing the entire struggle. Now, you started something very good here. But it's up to you, baby, to follow through on it.
The symbolism of handing Will the book and the quote from Malcolm X speak to so much about what this show aspired to be in its earliest season. In later seasons, the series will shift into something else, but for these early episodes, we get a sense of how the Fresh Prince of Bel Air was trying to say something about the Black experience in America, and how it was more than just a fashion statement or commercial product. And as music ran through much of this season, a number of musicians also made cameos. Even Quincy Jones himself made an appearance.
Terribly sorry, sir, but he's otherwise engaged.
But I happen to be his close personal friend.
In later season, guest stars would largely be from television, and while music remained a constant, in the first season it was at its most prominent. A subtle indication of how the show would change its focus, and I suspect a sign of waning influence or attention from Quincy Jones towards the series. Although it only ranked 41st in the overall ratings for the first season, The Fresh Prince of Bel Air was one of the highest rated new sitcoms, and its best performing years were still ahead of it. Season 2 brought with it some major changes to the look of the show, as the set for the Banks' mansion was updated with a more contemporary design. The living room and kitchen were now connected, giving the characters the chance to move seamlessly between the two. A part of this series' original DNA that it managed to hold onto, at least for this season, was the overt racial commentary. In the episode Guess Who's Coming to Mary, we see some extended family members show up for the marriage of Will's Aunt Janice. Before getting into the meat of the episode, I want to take a moment to mention I think it's really sweet how much Will gets along with his family.
Yo, 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 look who I found at the airport.
Diva! Baby
Even though the wedding is days away, no one in the family has met Frank, Janice's fiancé.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Welcome to our family. I'm Vi. I raised Janice, and looking at you, I know I raised her right.
Why don't you come in and make yourself comfortable?
Come on.
Your little woman will be down any minute.
Great. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks.
Baby.
Frank is played by Diedrich Bader, who, as the show is shocked to reveal, is a white guy. Everyone is immediately uncomfortable discussing this, particularly in front of the kids.
Gee, when Janice described him, she didn't mention that he was tall. Not that I have any problem with people who are tall.
My cousin used to date a girl who was tall.
Heck, the boys go to a predominantly tall school.
Am I alone in this, or didn't none of y'all notice he was white?
This is a very important part of the scene, particularly for a white audience. A refrain that's fairly common among white people is not knowing how to discuss race for fear of saying the wrong thing. Seeing a black family here have the exact same problem reveals that it's an experience we all share. Race is a difficult thing to talk about because no one wants to say the wrong thing. The fact that Will cuts through it so easily is like a breath of fresh air. Maybe because we know it's coming from an honest place. The central conflict in this episode is that Viola, Will's mother, doesn't approve of the coupling. In the following scene, we get a bit more context as to why.
Baby, don't you have enough problems being an African-American woman? You need a white husband to further complicate things? What about Frank? This isn't gonna make his life any easier. Have you thought about that? You thought about your children? Or the jobs or friends you may lose because some bigot fails to see the beauty in your marriage? Honey, I did not make the rules, but I do know how to play the game. For survival, Janice, please don't marry this man.
But Frank and I are aware of everything you just said, and we can handle it, sis.
You are making a terrible, terrible mistake.
Viola's rationale here is understandable, though depressingly cynical. Airing in the 1990s, it seemed a bit out of date then, and in 2020 it seems even more antiquated. But the concerns in conversations like this one still have the sound of truth to them. And the existence of these conversations and the very real bigotries that precede them are important to acknowledge. Compared to his mother, Will is more supportive. I really appreciate the contrast between the two perspectives here.
Well, I just thought that I would, drop in on the thing.
You mean the wedding?
I heard it referred to as that before.
Will's youthful optimism is colliding with the cynicism of his mother, and it's in this clash that we can see the different generational perspective on race. Some lines in particular in this exchange feel a bit clumsy, such as the leaps in logic Will's mother makes here.
I sacrificed a lot for Janice, and it's quite obvious that she doesn't respect me anymore, which also means she doesn't care about me anymore. That's fine, because I don't care about her either.
Mom, what are you saying? What? Everybody that loves you got to do exactly what you say? I mean, what if I don't choose the college that you want, or I don't choose the profession you want, or don't live in the city that you want? What, you gonna stop loving me too? Look, Mom, I hope not, because look, I really love you. I really, really love you, Mom. But I'm going to the thing.
What these lines are expressing is that a union like Janice and Frank's is a direct challenge to authority and entrenched wisdom. Viola represents an old way of thinking, one that needs to be challenged and defeated by a new generation, represented by Will. Eventually, Viola changes her mind and shows up for the wedding. It's a classic sitcom finish, of course, with everyone happy and together, and while we'd see a bit more of Janice and Frank in a handful of future episodes, the challenges of their interracial relationship aren't really explored much further, aside from the occasional joke.
Here we are in a lovely state of Utah. Don't ask me why. Only black people I've seen been in the Ray Charles Pepsi commercial.
You're kidding. Every time I turn around, I see a black person.
The racial commentary started being less of an overt subject for the series moving forward, and would more often take the shape of jokes like these.
You can put your hands down, Jazz.
No way. Dude's got a gun. Next thing you know, I got 6 warning shots in my back.
Jazz.
Okay. I'm putting my hands down now.
We see a sign of Will losing his connection to his roots in the episode Vying for Attention, where Will's mother visits with her new fiancé, Robert, played by Bruce Overton, and his daughter, Claudia, played by Raven Simone.
Hi, Claudia. I'm Hillary. Oh, my God. Isn't she the cutest little thing you've ever seen?
Not really.
And I would like for you to meet Robert. And isn't he the biggest hunk you've ever seen?
Not really.
It's a predictable sitcom plot. Will feels threatened by Robert, and Robert feels insecure around Will. Eventually, they learn how to get along.
Where'd you meet my mom? She picked me up in a bar. Hey, man.
It was an oyster bar. You see, I was a little shy, so luckily she came up and she talked to me.
So what's she talk about?
You. Is it true you took your diaper off and ran around Sears naked? You're damn right, and I'd do it again if I had to. Did you ever think about what I wanted? I mean, Robert's my man. Claudia's so adorable. You went off and started a whole new family without me.
Baby, don't you know there is no family without you?
Robert, hold up, man. I just wanted to apologize for messing up your celebration. Next time you come out, dinner on me? I appreciate it, man.
But there's one moment I really liked where Carlton tries to cheer up Will.
I just want you to know, if your mom abandons you and gets married, you'll always have me. Because, well, you're like the brother I've always wanted.
Thanks a lot, Carlton.
For not hugging you, right?
Well, no, you know, for saying that I'm like the brother that you always wanted. And for not hugging me, man.
The added dynamic of Will living with his family in Bel Air makes this an episode about bonding with them too, and serves as a reminder of one of the themes of this series is making a family around you. In the context of this series, there's a bittersweet quality to this as Viola ends up not marrying Robert, but it still signals a turning point in Will's growth as a character. He's got two families now, though as the series goes on, he's going to be growing a lot closer to the one he has in Bel Air, and that starts to change him. And as Will changes, so does the show around him. One highlight from season 2, it gave us the first appearance of the Carlton dance. Although technically this isn't the first time Carlton has danced on the show, he showed off some of his moves in season 1, this would be the first time he gave us this particular dance move. This dance was invented by Alfonso Ribeiro, and it's a combination of Courtney Cox's dance in the Bruce Springsteen video, Dancing in the Dark, and Eddie Murphy's The White Man Dance in his Delirious video. Aside from the opening theme, Carlton's dance is one of the most lasting cultural artifacts from the series. Season 2 also attempted to introduce a few new characters, such as Will's friend Tyreek, who appeared in a handful of episodes, and one notable guest appearance was in She Ain't Heavy, where Nia Long played Claudia, an attractive rich girl Will has less fun dating than he expected.
And we're the only ones in white. So Tiffany says, oh my God, it's the day after Labor Day. And we just all wanted to die. That's a true story.
We'll have a lot more to say about Nia Long in season 5, but not as Claudia. The season's opener really emphasizes how difficult it is to keep the show's premise going in How I Spent My Summer Vacation. Will returns from a summer in Philadelphia.
Will, it's so nice to have you home.
We see Will influencing Ashley, mocking Carlton, and Hillary's line is a direct callback to her appearance in the first episode.
Dad, I need $300.
Hillary, your cousin Will is here.
Hi. Dad, I need $300. Daddy, I need $500. Will!
Hill!
Daddy, I need $500.
Adjusted for inflation, of course. Will embarrasses his Uncle Phil at a party, and we have another showdown between Will and his uncle. This one goes a little different, though.
Come on, y'all. It's about all of us. I mean, look, we're young adults here. I mean, we have a right to our own opinions.
Yeah!
As long as you keep the hair, the clothes, and the beeper, you're all grounded. Good night.
All right, look, y'all, this is a classic case of divide and conquer. Look, Malcolm warned us about this.
Get him!
While this episode very much feels like a retread of the season 1 premiere, the additional wrinkle of Will successfully standing up for himself, only to have his cousins turned against him, is a miniature portrayal of how difficult it is to upset the status quo, because people like Uncle Phil, who hold all the power, can so easily manipulate allies against one another. Even for a rebellion as meek as wearing some new clothing and changing one's hairstyle. In a later episode this season, Boys in the Woods, we get a great visual representation of what Will and the show are becoming when he tries to take off with some prize money. The lowered pants, a fairly common fashion statement in the 90s, is weighed down by money. It isn't Will using an aesthetic of the street for a personal statement, it's him using it to carry his wealth. That encapsulates so much of what the show is becoming. Will's streetwise personality is an aesthetic, and underneath that facade is the fabulous wealth he's lucked into. Will's change was preceded by the change in the Banks family, as in the episode Will Gets Committed, we see a glimpse of the old neighborhood they once lived in. Will and the family all head to this old neighborhood to help clean it up, and we get a nice little scene where Will's activism gets called out by one of the guys living in the neighborhood, Noah, played by Shavar Ross.
I bet you feel pretty good about yourself, don't you? I mean, you come down here, do the right thing, and then you go home patting yourself on the back because you helped out the poor folk.
Oh, wait, hold up, man. Yo, I'm from Philly. We had to save up to be poor. Why you sweating me like this, man? What's up?
Cuz, you're just like all the rest of them. You come around here with the X-cap and them cool Doc Martens and you're all dope and word to your mother, and you think that makes you committed. Let me tell you something, this ain't no game. And if you think that it is, then maybe you should go home, because you're not welcome here. Tell Dan Quayle I said what's up.
This leads to a lengthy flashback scene where we see the Banks family before they got rich. This is pretty strange to watch, as it seems to establish all the rich kid traits were in Hillary and Carlton the whole time.
There are more important things in life than fancy clothes and big houses.
What have you been smoking?
Imagine my son, the country's first black president.
I'm black.
It's disappointing to see the influence of Bel Air be altered to be some kind of innate quality for the characters, though this kind of revision is never mentioned again in the series, and at least in the case of Philip and Vivian, they did seem different in their earlier years.
Hey, how's the crusading business coming, man? Are you still fighting for little guys like me?
Well, I'm still fighting, but it's corporate mergers mostly.
Oh, so you're not working out of a little storefront anymore?
Oh, well, no, my office has gotten a little bit bigger, but it's just a few miles from here.
You work in Beverly Hills, Uncle Phil.
Legal aid for those who can't afford it doesn't quite have the same ring to it as corporate mergers. At the end of the episode, everyone decides to return next week to help out with the community, and then we never hear about this neighborhood again. This episode feels like a very meek attempt to reach back to what the show was about in its beginning. Had it worked and pulled the Banks family into stories where they connected to those earlier versions of themselves, at least in the case of Philip and Vivian, who genuinely seem to have different lives, it would have heralded an evolution of the series. Instead of seeing Will be transformed into another denizen of Bel Air, his presence would instead be reminding his new family of their roots. Instead, we'll be seeing it go in another direction. Even so, this episode very much did bring us a lasting change of a different sort.
I'm pregnant!
This change to the series was made to accommodate the real-life pregnancy of actress Janet Hubert. And this would lead Vivian into taking a more muted role in the third season. She still appeared in episodes, but her role often felt diminished, a trend that would continue in later seasons when the character would face an even bigger transformation. Also, this episode has a joke I want to point out.
I know you. Yeah, ain't you the guy from Family Matters?
This joke is only cute when you consider this moment from Family Matters.
Well, hello, little G.
Okay, you win. He does look like the father on Fresh Prince.
Seriously though, how does one confuse James Avery with Reginald Vell Johnson? Avery has nearly a foot of height on the guy. The baby is born with the usual sitcom shenanigans. He's named Nicholas, and usually he's referred to as Nicky. In addition to the pregnancy, we got a few other changes to the lives of the characters, such as Hillary getting a new job as a TV weather girl.
How would you like to be a weather girl?
I don't know the first thing about weather.
Sure you do. What happens when it rains?
You send Jeffrey out to get the car.
We also meet her love interest and eventual fiancé, Trevor Collins, played by Brian Stokes Mitchell.
Whoa.
I know.
Hi, I'm Trevor Collins, and these are my real teeth.
Wow.
I know.
We also see Uncle Phil leave his law firm to run for a seat on the California Superior Court.
To Judge Robertson's seat!
In a sense, this is definitely Uncle Phil making the system a better one, since the man he was replacing, Judge Robertson, played by Sherman Hemsley, was a bit of a bastard.
There goes Philip Banks, the biggest sap that ever lived. What a stooge.
But we'll be seeing very little of Philip Banks being a judge working to improve the system, and more of him presiding over high-profile trials and then considering a run for office as a Republican. This isn't the force of change one might expect from a 60s radical turned lawyer, though it is the kind of incremental systemic change we see in the real world. This season closed with Will finally graduating from high school, and the show was experiencing its highest ratings ever. Season 4 would take the story to the whole new world of college. But before heading there, we have to talk about Aunt Vivian.
Boy, do not test me.
Between seasons 3 and 4, the role of Aunt Vivian was recast, with Janet Hubert being replaced by Daphne Maxwell-Reid. The details of what exactly happened here are complicated. At the time, they were just called creative differences, but over the years, details would slip out as to what exactly happened with Hubert's departure. The first public comment came from Will Smith in 1993 when he spoke to an Atlanta radio station. I can say straight up that Janet Hubert wanted the show to be the Aunt Viv of Bel Air show because I know she is going to dog me in the press. She has basically gone from $250,000 a year to nothing. She's mad now, but she's been mad all along. She said once, "I've been in the business for 10 years, and this snotty-nosed punk comes along and gets a show. No matter what, to her, I'm just the Antichrist." Hubert filed an unsuccessful lawsuit against NBC, and her career faced several setbacks. Years later, in an interview with the Huffington Post, Hubert would claim that she had been targeted for some time before finally exiting the show. Will Smith and Alfonso destroyed a 20-year career with untruths. I got slammed. Will apologized later in an Essence magazine article, but it still lingers. It's still there. On his side of things, Ribeiro has largely stayed silent, but some footage of a stand-up show he performed in 2009 revealed some of his feelings about Hubert.
Legally, I'm not allowed to talk about it. But hey. She went nuts. Long story short, and there were days when we were on the set and she would literally go off on people, and it got to a point by the time the second season came around where we're like, this is unacceptable, and she made it very difficult for us to work, and unfortunately she was then fired. They brought in Daphne Maxwell-Reid, who we absolutely love, and we moved on.
What's particularly interesting is him mentioning some kind of legal reason why he has to stay silent, which might be the reason why none of the other cast members have commented on Hubert's departure, typically opting for diplomatic language when questioned about it. In 2009, Hubert self-published her memoir, Perfection is Not a Sitcom Mom, where she went into greater detail about the experience. The book doesn't offer much in the way of incriminating Will Smith, though it does portray Hubert as being on the outs with members of the cast. Ultimately, it seems the reason for her departure was her new contract's payment offer was lower than she wanted it to be. In the early 2010s, Hubert offered a number of statements, some seemingly offering to reconcile with the cast, but this was in sharp contrast to a video she would release on her Facebook page in 2016. Here's a comment from the video describing a conversation she had with Will Smith. "You know what, Will? You're the star of the show. Why don't we all get together, and with you, maybe we could get a little raise. Maybe the network, since, you know, the show is such a hit, and you being the star of the show, your influence would help us greatly, like they did on Friends, like white shows do." And your response to me was, "My deal is my deal, and y'all's deal is y'all's deal." Based on these comments, it seems the main point of contention was Hubert wanting more money and Will Smith's unwillingness to cooperate in helping her with their negotiations, possibly because of some personal friction between the two and possibly other members of the cast. Will Smith's response to the Facebook video was a bit more diplomatic. As an artist, there's so many things that she does. She sings, she dances, she's like a really powerful artist, so I love what she brought to The Fresh Prince. Janet Hubert, for her part, has denied allegations like the one Ribeiro made about her being difficult on the set. It seems as though this feud has no real end in sight. Or so I thought. While working on this video, Will Smith announced an anniversary special for The Fresh Prince of Bel Air to be airing on HBO Max, including a photo with him and members of the cast. Not included, though, was Janet Hubert. However, a photo has recently been released of Will Smith and Janet Hubert sitting down to talk with one another, suggesting that Hubert would also be involved in this reunion special. On her Instagram, Janet Hubert posted the photo with the caption, "Reunited and it feels so good. Hashtag free at last." Although at the time of making this video, this special has yet to air, it's currently scheduled to come out in November of 2020. It's great to see that both Will and Janet seem to be putting this grudge to bed and can happily celebrate her very substantial contributions to The Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
Up until a few days ago, I never even thought I'd see my father again. But I still managed to keep the fantasy. Now it's real.
Season 4 brought with it a number of changes, the first and most obvious being a new actress playing Aunt Vivian, Daphne Maxwell-Reid. The show acknowledged Hubert's exit from the series in a cute little moment.
You know, Miss Banks, Since you had that baby, there's something different about you.
And the opener brought with it a real sense of change. Both Will and Carlton were going off to study at the University of Los Angeles, and the series also introduced a new reoccurring character, Jackie Ames, played by Tyra Banks. An old friend of Will's from back in Philadelphia, she's come out west on a basketball scholarship. She and Will have great chemistry, and she offers another connection to his roots.
That's it. I done come all the way here from Philly to hear
well, it's gonna have to be it. Don't be all up in my grill. Don't be all up in my grill.
You need to
You know what? You ain't never gonna change. I'm getting the last word. Oh, no, you not. Oh, yes, I am. Damn!
This guest spot wouldn't last the season, though, and she would only appear in 9 episodes, last seen being driven home by Carlton after Will makes an ass of himself at a party. Another big change is Hillary's engagement is suddenly cut short when her fiancé, Trevor, has an unfortunate accident.
It's a bungee jump. Oh. Well, I asked him to propose in a special way, but I never expected a bungee jump. What's a bungee jump?
Look, there he goes.
Hillary Banks!
Yes, Trevor!
Will you marry me?
Technically, is it an engagement if he never finishes asking the question? Hillary moves on later in the season, though she needs a bit of help from Will to get there.
You become one of them crazy old women who walk around all day long with a shower cap on. With an old raggedy halter top to say, jam. And then you're gonna start wearing rhinestone gauchos. And then, just for no reason, you'll say, dum-dum-diddy.
A big part of season 4 was the large number of very special episodes. It's rumored Will Smith himself requested the series start tackling more serious subjects, inspired by what he was seeing on the ABC sitcom Roseanne. Overall, the show's record with these types of episodes was a mixed bag, but there was one episode this season that not only broke that trend by being truly excellent, it gave us one of the more memorable sitcom moments of the 90s. In Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse, after nearly 100 episodes, we finally meet Will's father, Lou Smith, played by Ben Vereen. Lou ran out on Will and his mother 14 years ago.
You take care of yourself, yeah? Yeah. You too, all right?
Whoa, hold up. Hey, you want to stop by the crib later and, have some dinner?
Oh, well, I know you're living with Philip and Vivian, and I don't think I'd be too welcome.
Note in that moment, Will is making an effort to stay connected. Lou had his bag in hand, ready to take off, but it's Will's words that make him stay. Lou's reception from Vivian and Philip is less welcoming, though.
Still a stone-cold fox.
Well, you should have told me. You really should have told me.
I asked Jeffrey to tell you.
I thought it might be more fun this way. And I was right.
Well, he owns his own trucking company now.
Well, one truck, but I am my own boss. And I'm making a little money.
Really?
Yeah.
Why didn't you send any back to the wife and child you abandoned?
And another nice touch is how Will can't seem to call Lou Dad.
Hillary, this is,
I'm Will's father.
Oh, come on. Will's father is a deadbeat who left him and his mom flat.
Hello?
Uncle Lou!
Will and Lou bond at a theme park in an effort for Will to capture the youth he never had with his father.
I just wasn't ready to be a father. Started feeling trapped. Yeah? One day I just panicked and ran. It's selfish and cowardly, but that's what I did. I'm sorry.
Look, why are you telling me this now?
Because you're my son, and I love you. And I'm a different man now. I'm ready to be part of your life, if you'll let me.
And Will finally starts using the magic word.
He's really good.
He's my dad.
But this doesn't sit well with Uncle Phil, who is suspicious about Lou.
Hey, Uncle Phil, that is not cool, man, the way you dissing my father like that.
The hell with your father.
Philip, for God's sake.
He waltzes in here after 15 years?
14.
Oh, excuse me, 14 years. And acts like nothing has happened. Wake up, Will. This is the same guy who didn't think enough of you to pick up the damn phone.
You know what, Aunt Viv? Ain't even nothing to talk about. I've been waiting for this for a long time, my whole life, and ain't nobody gonna stop me. Come tomorrow, I'm out of here.
Oh, yeah, I don't think so.
Who cares what you think? You are not my father!
The pain in Uncle Phil's face here says so much about this moment. Lou, who works as a trucker now, wants to take Will on the road with him, and even though Uncle Phil disapproves, he and Will patch things up enough so Will can leave without any hard feelings between them.
Look, Uncle Phil, man, look, you know I appreciate everything you've done for me. But this ain't about you, man. This is something I gotta do for me.
Yeah, I know, son. And, I wish you the best. Good luck. I'll miss you.
Me too, man. Hey, Uncle Phil. I mean, you know that this is just for the summer, right?
Lou has another plan, though.
Daddy-o! What's up?
Will, I'm glad you're here. Some business came up I gotta handle. So we're gonna have to put our trip on hold. You understand?
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Just for a couple of weeks.
I understand.
Yeah. Maybe a little longer.
Yeah, whatever.
Look, I'll call you next week and we'll iron out the details, okay?
Yeah.
It was great seeing you, son.
You too, Lou.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Will.
You know what? Actually, this works out better for me. You know, the Slimmies of summer come to class wearing next to nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's all right to be angry.
Hey, why should I be mad? I'm saying, at least he said goodbye this time. I just wish I hadn't wasted my money buying this stupid present.
I'm sorry. If there was something that I
Hey,
could
you know
do.
what? You ain't got to do nothing, Uncle Phil. Hey, ain't like I'm still 5 years old, you know? Ain't like I'm gonna be sitting up every night asking my mom, when's Daddy coming home, you know? Who needs him? Hey, he wasn't there to teach me how to shoot my first basket, but I learned, didn't I? Hey, I got pretty damn good at it too, didn't I, Uncle Phil?
You did.
Got through my first date without him, right? I learned how to drive, I learned how to shave, I learned how to fight without him. I had 14 great birthdays without him. He never even sent me a damn card. To hell with him! I ain't need him then and I don't need him now.
Will.
Nah, you know what, Uncle Phil? I'm gonna get through college without him. I'm gonna get a great job without him. I'm gonna marry me a beautiful honey, and I'm gonna have me a whole bunch of kids. I'm gonna be a better father than he ever was. And I sure as hell don't need him for that, because ain't a damn thing he could ever teach me about how to love my kids. How come he don't want me, man?
Everything was so good about that final scene. The emotional expression and powerful dialogue hit so hard, but there are so many small gestures that add to it. When Will talks about his life after his father left him, he talks about the past he survived through and the future he plans for, and in between those two parts of his monologue, he walks past Uncle Phil, the man who would help him make that journey, as if he were the bridge between his troubled past and bright future. And the way Will's body crumbles towards the end, the single tear that's pulling him down, and Uncle Phil is there to hold him up. This episode was never about Will's relationship with Lou Smith. It was about his relationship with a man who would be a real father to him, Philip Banks. This episode can be read in a number of different ways, and small bits of subtext can be pulled out, certainly, but even on its most basic level, this is still an incredibly powerful and meaningful moment. and that's why it's become so treasured in the memories of the Fresh Prince of Bel Air's audience. There are a lot of urban legends about this scene, such as it being based on Will Smith's real-life father abandoning him, or that most of the scene was ad-libbed. The truth is, Will Smith and his father have a good relationship, and the only line I could discern that was not originally in the script, according to a comment from the director of the episode, was when Will shouted, "Die with him!" A number of people involved in the production have spoken about that scene as well. Karen Parsons said, "I remember being on the set when the scene went down. It was devastating. I wasn't expecting it. It hadn't gone like that in rehearsal." And to this day, it's left a lasting impact on Ben Vereen. I can't tell you how many women have come at me and yelled at me for leaving Will. In 2018, Will Smith spoke to the importance of James Avery in that final scene.
So we're doing it, and I'm messing up the lines because I want it so bad. And we're in front of the audience, and I'm doing it, and I'm furious. And he holds on me. He says, "Hey," he's like, "Relax, relax. It's already in there. You know what it is." He was like, "Look at me. Use me. Don't act around me. Act with me." He's like, so he's talking me through it and everything, so I get it together. So I do the scene and, the thing, and he hugs me at the end. And while he's hugging me, he whispers in my ear, he said, "That's f***ing acting right there."
Although it's an important scene for Will Smith, establishing he had some genuine dramatic talent, James Avery's performance in that scene reminds the viewer just how important Uncle Phil is to this series. One thing I've noticed about the character of Philip Banks is that fans of the show always refer to him as Uncle Phil. It's something I'm doing in this video. James Avery had a profound impact on an entire generation as a powerful father figure. Loving but firm, you got the sense that whenever he was hard on Will or any of his other kids, he was doing it for their own good, and he truly wanted them to live their best possible life. And this was something Avery brought to the role himself. Season 4 ended with an episode titled The Philadelphia Story, where upon returning home to Philadelphia, Will realizes things have moved on without him when he tries to reclaim his honor by confronting his former high school bully.
What about your rep?
Look, you see those guys over there? That's my rep. Brother, you need to grow up.
And Will makes a shocking decision about his future.
What happened? You missed your flight?
Sorta.
Well, when are you coming back then?
I'm not.
Season 5 begins with Will returning to Bel Air from Philadelphia, which should sound familiar since the first and third seasons both started the same way. This time he's dragged back by a suit from NBC.
What's up?
What does this contract say?
Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
That's right, not Philadelphia, Bel Air.
Well, yeah, man, but you know my mom.
Get up, man. Yo, Holmes, to Bel Air.
We also get a new addition to the show. The youngest Banks child, Nicky, has grown a few years over the summer, and he is now played by Ross Bagley.
By the way, who's playing the mother this year?
It's the same mom.
Who are you?
Oh, come on, Jazz, that's baby Nicky.
But the biggest change for season 5 was the return of Nia Long, this time playing Will's love interest, Lisa. She first appeared in the episode Will's Misery. When we first meet Lisa, she's actually part of an elaborate prank constructed by a sorority trying to teach Will a lesson about respecting women.
You've caused so much pain to so many women. You're just a dirty dog. And now it's payback time.
Baby, you kind of killing the mood.
This episode, and the through line of this season, seems like an admission that Will's endless pursuit of women has run thin, and it only makes sense to plant the seed of a recurring love interest in Lisa, and soon she starts appearing as Will's regular girlfriend.
Oh, yeah, well, I did date somebody else.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did, last night, one of my friends. And she was ready and willing to do anything I wanted to do. Except we couldn't do what I wanted to do, because all I wanted to do was be with you.
Oh, really?
Yes, really, and do you know why?
No, why?
Because I love you.
The chemistry between Will Smith and Nia Long is fantastic. Aside from seeming to genuinely care for one another, Lisa is a strong enough character not to be so easily charmed by the always affable Will. Halfway through the season, we get an episode where Will is shot by a mugger in Bullets Over Bel Air. It ends with a tearful moment where Will has to take a gun from a vengeful Carlton, but the fallout of this episode had a much longer impact than Carlton nearly becoming an armed vigilante. The next episode, A Decent Proposal, sees Will's perspective change regarding his relationship.
Well, you fell?
Oh, yeah, I fell. In love with you, baby. Lisa, will you marry me?
Marry you? Will, did you take another one of those yellow pills?
Lisa eventually accepts the proposal.
You know, I mean, who's to say what's gonna happen tomorrow or next week or the week after that? All I know is that I love you. And Lisa, believe me, that is never gonna change.
Well, in that case, the answer is yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes!
It's amazing to think that it's been 11 episodes since her debut and Lisa is already engaged to Will. The season wraps up with, "For whom the wedding bells toll." When the big wedding day finally arrives, Will is realizing he and Lisa don't know each other as well as they thought they did, and he's starting to have second thoughts.
I'm scared. I guess this, like, ain't the best time to be telling you this.
No, baby. I'm really happy that you did because I've been scared too.
Really? I thought I was alone in this. Girl, why you ain't tell me, girl?
No, I guess for the same reasons you didn't tell me.
You know, I can't tell you how good it feels to know I can tell you anything. Now I know we're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Will gets it together enough to walk down the aisle, but...
Well, I'm sorry, but I just think if we both have doubts about this whole thing...
No, we had doubts. Oh, remember, babe, we talked about it. We both feel better.
No, baby, you feel better, but I think we're making a really big mistake. And if you think about it, you will too.
And the season comes to a close with various women from Will's past talking about him being back on the market. Will and Lisa calling off the wedding apparently means their relationship is over entirely, and Lisa makes her exit from the series. So what does last after season 5? Will is shown to be able to make a real commitment to a woman he truly loves, only for that growth potential to be completely undone. I think the idea of a relationship's life cycle being explored in a season is interesting, though ending in a wedding as opposed to a more traditional breakup seems more like an attempt at a fake-out than giving Will a more rounded experience. It's also less relatable, as most breakups don't involve being dumped at the altar. But maybe I can take some time to talk about another development that happened this season. Hillary has gone from weather girl to talk show host. Although it's never really explained how this happened, aside from a credit sequence in an episode from season 4, where she seems to bully her way into getting her own show.
Doesn't anybody care about my needs? Do you have any idea how much this outfit cost me? And you know the statute's not up yet on that sexual harassment case I have against you. Oh, don't think I won't, mister. I'll drag you through the mud.
Hillary fits the talk show mold perfectly. I haven't had much cause to discuss Hillary, but she is a surprisingly prominent fixture in nearly every episode of this series. Even in later seasons when episodes seem to narrow their focus on Will, you really get the impression that Karen Parsons' excellent performance is irresistible to the writers, as Hillary is constantly brought into scenes to nail great one-liners.
What's going on? Ew.
There's also something about the performance that always grabs the audience's attention. Something fun is probably going to happen when Hillary is in a scene. It was Karen Parsons who, in a recent interview, revealed an interesting bit of information on season 5. Halfway through the production of this season, at one point, Will pulled together people working on the show to let them know that the 6th season would be its last. It would be enough time for everyone to arrange for new jobs in the future and give the Fresh Prince of Bel Air family behind the scenes the chance to enjoy one last year together. Season 6 very much felt like the show was in a stalling position, slowly drifting backwards to easier, more comfortable themes that it hit on before. The premise of the premiere was Will shenanigans embarrassing Uncle Phil at a dinner party in front of one of his rich friends. A trope so well worn in this series it goes back to the very first episode. As one great example of how tired this series is starting to feel, in Not I Barbecue, we see Will and Carlton trying to hook up with two beautiful women, Sandra and Tiffany, played by Garcelle Beauvais and Tamala Jones. In the midst of a strip word game, Tiffany's boyfriend Mad Dog, played by Jamie Cardrish, shows up. We got a few fun gags.
makes me sick. If you get the hell out of our way, fool.
Hey, there's no need to be calling names. Sticks and stones will break your bones, but a 50-foot fall will kill y'all.
And that was pretty much the whole episode. And most of the season. Capers and antics that were sometimes hilarious, but not a whole lot more than that. The season does deserve some credit for giving us the Apache dance, though. The show at least acknowledges that Will seems to be stagnated in life, and in the episode, Get a Job, he does just that, stealing Carlton's job on Hillary's talk show.
You're fired. Will, you're hired.
The rest of that episode is pretty forgettable, though, with Will running away from the sister of one of Hillary's celebrity guests, in this case, played by Chris Rock wearing a dress. There is one moment I should highlight.
What's up, baby? Why don't you hurry and write your number down if I don't want it no more?
That line should sound familiar if you go back to the season 3 episode, Will Gets Committed.
Yeah, what's up, baby? Hurry up, write your number down if I don't want it no more.
And this was not the only time Will would repeat a pickup line. It's one more sign that this show is running low on ideas and falling into the trap of becoming a repetitive network sitcom. As the show began to wind down, a few plot threads were introduced to wrap up each character's life in Bel Air. Philip and Vivian had their marriage tested when Uncle Phil considers running for office under the Republican Party banner. He eventually passes on the offer, and he and Vivian decide to move back east. Also moving east are Hillary and Ashley. Ashley is pursuing a modeling career in New York, and Hillary is moving her talk show there as well.
Your bone structure, your figure. Has anyone ever talked to you about modeling?
Just this old guy that comes in here with a Polaroid.
Carlton is also heading to the other side of the country to attend Princeton. And Jeffrey had a shock in season 6, finding out he has a son.
My name is Frederick Vickers. Penelope's your mother?
So it's true?
Well, we were married. Briefly. But we had no children.
That's right, G. Stick to your story, man. At least till the blood tests come out, man.
So he's decided to move even further east, back to England, so he can spend some time with the son he never knew. That leaves Will with nothing to do. The perfect subject for the series finale two-parter, I Done. In this two-parter, we get a few surprise appearances from stars of sitcom past. We also see a sign of the impact Will has had on Carlton's life, and vice versa.
Oh, wait, check this out. I didn't know I had 2 Biggie Small CDs.
Well, one of them is mine.
You own a Biggie Small CD?
Well, you know, I'd like to think of myself as with it. Wait a minute. I know I don't own 2 What's New Pussycats.
I don't even know why we stand here talking. We gotta get packed, man.
And then it's time for everyone to say goodbye.
Look, Uncle Phil, I just don't want you to think that I'm that same stupid kid I was when I first moved out here.
How could you possibly believe that that's what I'd be thinking? Look at you. You're moving out on your own. You're gonna finish college in a year. You're becoming a man. Man I'm damn proud of.
An emotional finish and a complete cliche, down to the lights being turned off on the set. The cast makes it work though, which could serve as a fitting metaphor for the entire series, a conventional series buoyed by great performances and a handful of standout episodes. The repetitive nature of this season makes sense when you consider everyone knew the show was ending halfway through season 5. Ironically, it gave the show an ending and final season that was completely unnatural. It's not that the show got bad, just that it went on autopilot, waiting for the series to come to a close. It does give us a chance to reflect on how these 6 seasons have shaped the character, Will Smith. We can see how he's impacted those around him, such as influencing Carlton's taste in music, an echo of the important role music played in the identities of characters in earlier seasons. But notice, it's not some Biggie Smalls they dance to in their final moments together, but instead Tom Jones. But as much impact as Will might have had on those around him, Bel Air undoubtedly left a bigger impact on Will. The reason the show is ending has less to do with the journey of Will Smith the character and more the career of Will Smith the actor. Throughout the series, Will Smith's real life frequently seeped into episodes with a number of fourth wall breaking references to his music career and acting projects outside of the series.
Will, there's something you have to learn. Sometimes parents just don't understand.
So I put on this real sincere face. Before I knew it, I had this cop convinced I was Sidney Poitier's son.
Will Smith's profile was on the rise. While the 6th season was airing, he starred in the film Bad Boys, and 2 months after Fresh Prince ended, he would star in Independence Day. Smith's goals were made clear in an interview published shortly after the show ended. On some weeks, you spend more time with your TV family than you do your real family. It's hard to say goodbye to that atmosphere, but we felt like it was time. We've all grown as actors and as people, we had an incredibly talented cast, but the show is just limiting. TV is a good workout facility, where you get to work on your timing and other paces, but I think I've had enough time in the gym. Now I'm ready for the coach to put me in the game. Motion pictures.
I am definitely gonna miss you, see.
The characters from The Fresh Prince of Bel Air didn't just appear on their own show. During its run, Karen Parsons appeared as Hilary on the TV show Blossom, which aired immediately after The Fresh Prince on NBC. The Hilary Banks character also appeared on the Patti LaBelle-helmed series Out All Night. And Will Smith appeared in an episode of Blossom as well, though strangely he appeared not as his Fresh Prince character, but as himself. So I guess this is a world where Will Smith is a famous actor and rapper, and the Fresh Prince of Bel Air is real, since Hilary Banks also exists in this world? Guess they didn't really think this one through. After the Fresh Prince finished its run, Alfonso Ribeiro and Tatiana Ali appeared on the LL Cool J-led series In the House as Carlton and Ashley Banks in the show's Season 2 premiere. On the show's 3rd season, though, Ribeiro would join the cast as an original character, Maxwell Stanton, and there would be a fun cameo in a later episode where he would be married and his parents were played by James Avery and Daphne Maxwell-Reid, with Joseph Marcel showing up as the minister. In the House was also produced by Quincy Jones. After The Fresh Prince of Bel Air, Will Smith went on to be in a couple of movies. He was in Independence Day, Men in Black, Enemy of the State, Wild Wild West, The Legend of Bagger Vance, Ali, Men in Black 2, Bad Boys 2, I, Robot, Shark Tale, Hitch, The Pursuit of Happiness, I Am Legend, Hancock, 7 Pounds, Men in Black 3, After Earth, Bright, Aladdin, Gemini Man, and Bad Boys for Life. So he's done pretty well for himself. But I have yet to forgive him for wasting 2 hours of my life with Suicide Squad. Still waiting on my refund, Will. James Avery would go on to star in a short-lived sitcom titled Sparks, and appeared regularly in movies and TV shows. He was also a prolific voice actor, probably most famous for playing Shredder in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. Sadly, on December 31st, 2013, Avery died at the age of 68 due to complications following open-heart surgery. A tragic loss for the acting world, and undoubtedly even more for his family and loved ones. Janet Hubert would continue to appear in a number of TV shows and films, most recently joining the cast of General Hospital. As mentioned earlier in the video, she recently patched things up with Will Smith, ending a feud that clearly went on for far too long. Daphne Maxwell-Reid would appear in several acting roles, though she'll probably still be most remembered for her time as the second Aunt Vivian on The Fresh Prince. An interesting fact I found out about Daphne Maxwell-Reid was that in 1967, she was the first African-American homecoming queen at Northwestern University. Karen Parsons appeared in the film Major Pain and on the TV series The Job, though after 2002 she stepped away from acting and wouldn't return to the screen for another 16 years, opting to work behind the scenes. Recently she wrote her first book, How High the Moon, based on her mother's life living in the southern US under Jim Crow laws. As I mentioned moments earlier, Alfonso Ribeiro would go on to join the sitcom In the House, but after it ended, Ribeiro would move further away from acting over the years. He would participate and win Dancing with the Stars with Whitney Carson in 2014. He currently hosts America's Funniest Home Videos. Tatiana Ali got the chance to show off her singing skills in the later seasons of The Fresh Prince of Bel Air, and she began a singing career shortly after the show ended with her 1998 debut album, Kiss the Sky. It sold well enough to go gold, though she would focus most of her time on acting, joining the cast of The Young and the Restless in 2007, and starring in Love That Girl in 2010. She still appears regularly in a number of movies and TV shows to this day. Joseph Marcel continues to act both on stage and on screen. On stage, he's still working quite happily on a number of Shakespeare productions, including playing King Lear in a production of King Lear. He's recently appeared in the Netflix film The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, which was selected as the British entry for the Best International Feature Film at the 92nd Academy Awards, but did not receive a nomination. With The Fresh Prince of Bel Air being so popular, rumors were always circulating about a potential reunion, but particularly with James Avery's passing, this is something that has been consistently shot down by cast members, including Will Smith. Many of them consider the show over and done with, at least the incarnation they worked on, and certainly the show could not work without an Uncle Phil. On March 10th, 2019, a fan-made trailer by Morgan Cooper was released on YouTube showing us a very different interpretation of The Fresh Prince of Bel Air. The trailer is really something special. It reshapes the series into something more dramatic and real than the sitcom ever was. Typically, I'm not a fan of tonal shifts that needlessly make something fun appear more gritty or dark, but this is one of the exceptions where the change in tone serves a purpose other than trying to seem edgy.
So Will, what brings you to Bel Air?
Caught with a gun.
This moment is particularly interesting as, instead of showing us Will Smith acting goofy and embarrassing his family with his antics, he instead gets real. And the build in the trailer shows us that this is about Will finding a second chance and hope for a better life. It feels uplifting even with the darker elements. In fact, it's those darker elements that make it seem so much more of a relief to think that Will is going to be okay. And this journey to Bel Air is a turning point in his life. It currently has over 6 million views on YouTube. This trailer got the attention of Will Smith, who invited Morgan Cooper to his place to talk about it.
As funny as the episodes are, there was a whole other layer that you couldn't do. Like, in a 1-hour drama, you can do 8-episode arcs.
The idea of this Fresh Prince reboot proved enticing enough that NBC's streaming service, Peacock, ordered 2 seasons of the series on September 8th, 2020. Something unprecedented for this particular streaming service. In addition to being more modern, Bel Air is also telling a version of the Fresh Prince of Bel Air that would have been far tougher to do in the 90s. When the original series was being pitched, based on the life of Benny Medina, the darker textures of his life had to be changed to create a presentable comedy. The grittier realities of living as a black teenager wasn't something network television was ready for. By turning the show into a comedy, some of those heavier themes were more easily made a part of the show. It's brilliance of some of the best comedy, conveying unpleasant truths in the more comfortable shape of humor. In 2021, when Bel Air is scheduled to debut, those weightier commentaries on growing up as a black teenager can be brought to the forefront in a way that's more earnest and realistic, and speaking to a whole new generation. In his autobiography, Q, Quincy Jones shared a story of the early days of the series, having to talk to advertisers worried about a show starring a potentially dangerous rapper. It wasn't believed that a show like that would be as marketable as the more conventional sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel Air would eventually become. Writing in his autobiography, Quincy Jones said, "The success of Fresh Prince in the mainstream is further proof that hip-hop has become the rock and roll of our era." But Quincy Jones's biography spent scant amount of time discussing The Fresh Prince of Bel Air at all. Jones absolutely has a storied career, and there's only so much that can be captured in a single book, but I suspect his role in the production of the show became less prominent in later seasons, as evidenced by the waning presence of music within the series. Without that guidance, I suspect the network had a greater influence in making the show less about hip-hop and more about making a new star in Will Smith. Looking at comments from many of the people involved with the production of the series, it seems that once it had gotten going, it was very much the ship Will Smith was piloting, and he took it in his own direction, a direction that helped build a rising star. Thinking back to that early quote when the show first premiered, it seemed that was the long-term plan, at least in the network's eyes, and it was never about making a show about hip-hop culture. We took a contemporary musical artist and crafted a character who is a perfect fit. In no way is this an effort to put a rap show on the air. This is an effort to put Will Smith on the air. That's who we're banking on. Assuming my speculation is accurate, that might be why they wanted the show to appeal as broadly as possible. They needed its star to be marketed to a wide audience. It reminds me of the opening of Season 5, where NBC executives drag Will Smith from Philadelphia back to Bel Air. Was this a symbol of the heavy hand of the network, or just a gag? It's hard to tell looking from the outside, but I suspect it's the former. And that might explain why The Fresh Prince of Bel Air was such a different show by the time the final season rolled around. Art is consistently appropriated by power structures, and subculture can be easily co-opted by corporate America. Whatever intentions an artist might have, the commodification of their work and the emphasis on business over creativity means ultimately what is being created in this environment is a product. So something created with the intention of bringing the burgeoning art form of hip-hop, an outlet dominated by black voices not often heard in the mainstream, is instead co-opted to make a few people rich and famous. I certainly don't blame Will Smith for being the guy made famous by this, because no one person can ever be responsible for how a system operates. And the new Fresh Prince project could very well tackle some important issues, and that's Will Smith using his privileged position for some good.
I am
here to be as involved or as all the way out your way as you guys need me to be.
I only hope that this Fresh Prince of Bel Air holds on to that creative spark and doesn't have so much of its best parts stripped away to make it more appealing to a mainstream audience that would sooner not have to think about the unjust systems that shape their lives. The story of the character Will Smith, a fresh-faced kid from Philadelphia being transformed by Bel Air into one of the privileged few, seems like too perfect a metaphor for how a show about hip-hop became consumed by the corporate machine of show business. But that doesn't necessarily make it invalid as a work of art, or even bad, but it should affect how we view it. And it does something that sitcoms are uniquely positioned to do, and that's show how a sustained project by a group of artists changes over time. Another comment from Will Smith summarized his feelings on the show at its end. We never started out trying to make some big social statement or leave a big fingerprint on American pop culture. We were just trying to have fun. We wanted to not only present some positive Black images, but also give people a vehicle to relieve some of the stress in their busy lives. In the same way the character Will Smith and the Banks family were transformed by Bel Air, so was the TV series The Fresh Prince of Bel Air transformed by the demands of network television. Whew, this was way bigger than I thought it would be. This is one of those shows I watched a ton of as a kid and genuinely loved. Revisiting it was a lot of fun, and I have high hopes for the Bel Air reboot, reimagining, I don't know what to call it. And I know Will Smith watches YouTube, so Will, if you're watching, I'm totally down with being like random white dude in an episode. Just saying is all. But seriously though, I really do want that money back for Suicide Squad. He probably hates me now. If you don't hate me, be like one of these fine people in the credits and join my Patreon. That would be cool and nice of you. Get your name in the credits, early access to videos like this one, and exclusive access to a download link to my awesome theme song by my friend Dana. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye.